I'm on a mission to 3D print every single Pokeball, and today we're actually not going to be making a new one. Instead, we're going to take a trip down memory lane and refamiliarize a lot of our new friends on this brand new journey with us printing Pokeballs. Now, I have been printing Pokeballs for a very long time under multiple different names, so I want to go look back at Season 1 of this series to show everyone what they missed out on, starting from the very first, the Moon Ball. And of course, as a reminder, only 5% of y'all are subscribed, so join along and tag with us on this journey. Day 1 of printing every single Pokeball until I run out of Pokeballs to print. Starting off with day 1, we're going to print one of my favorite designs for the Pokeball. This one is the Moon Ball, which first came out in Generation 2. Although the Moon Ball has such an amazing design, it actually doesn't serve a lot of purposes unless you use it against a Pokemon that evolves via a Moonstone, which is quite rare nowadays. Funny enough, it actually wasn't until the most recent generation, with Generation 9, where you were actually able to obtain this Pokeball legitimately. The only way to obtain this beforehand was actually via an event, which there was already a Pokemon inside of it. Day 2 of printing every single Pokeball until I run out of Pokeballs to print. For day 2, we're going to be making the Dusk Ball. I know last time I said the Moon Ball was my favorite, but that's because I forgot the Dusk Ball exists. Unlike the Moon Ball, the Dusk Ball was actually introduced way later into the franchise, and it was introduced in the Diamond and Pearl games, which was Generation 4. And there we have it. Comment which one you want to see next. Until I run out of Pokeballs to print. On this episode, we do have the beautiful and very highly requested, I've had a lot of people DM me about this one, Luxury Ball. The Luxury Ball made its first debut in the 3rd generation of the games, which was the Ruby and Sapphire games, which is actually kind of crazy to think it's that old. Even though the Luxury Ball has such a beautiful design, its practicality really isn't all there. The only thing it really does is increase the rate of friendship you and your Pokemon can gain when you actually catch them in here. And it's it's a little expensive, just a little bit. It's the most expensive Pokeball in all the games as of right now. And here's the collection so far. What should we do next? Day 4 of printing every single Pokeball until I run out of Pokeballs to print. On this episode, we have the situationally amazing Pokeball, the Beast Ball. And we'll talk a little bit about what I mean situationally amazing here in a little bit. This extraterrestrial looking Pokeball was actually introduced in Generation 7, which was the Sun and Moon era of the Pokemon games. And like I said earlier, what makes it not really amazing? Well, it's kind of specific. This Pokeball is actually used specifically for a unique type called Ultra Beasts, and when not used against them, they actually have the same exact catch rate of a regular Pokeball, which is kind of insane to think about. Something that I really appreciate about this design is that they tried to encapsulate the extraterrestrial feel of the Ultra Beast into their own unique specific Pokeball, and I think they nailed it. Almost looks like a planet, kind of like a few star systems. It looks really good. Fits the whole vibe with them. And there we have it. In the next episode, we're going to be making the Friend Ball. Day 5 of printing every single Pokeball until I run out of Pokeballs to print. On this episode, we're actually going to be making the Friend Ball, or known as the Friendliness Ball in Japanese. Kind of the same thing. I'm not sure why. This was actually one of my favorite Pokeballs growing up as a kid. I had a replica of one of these. I don't know why. The design is just very simple. Maybe that's why I liked it. I don't know. The Friendship Ball made its first debut in Generation 2, which was the Gold and Silver era. And really looking back at it, it's kind of interesting to see how simplistic a lot of the Pokeballs were, and now looking at the ones we have today, of how many do the same thing, if not better or worse than other ones, like the Love Ball and Luxury Ball. It's something interesting about this Pokeball, and very similar to a lot of the other Pokeballs that do anything with friendship, is it actually has the same catch rate as a regular Pokeball, and like I said, the only reason you're going to ever use this is to immediately level up your friendship of your Pokemon to 200, which is definitely not as good as a lot of other Pokeballs that were later introduced into the games. The only reason you would use this one over any other one is mainly just the design and the pop-out animation. And here's the finished Pokeball. Next week, we're going to try to do either the Cherish Ball or Heavy Ball. Choose which ones y'all want in the comments. Oh god. Man, that's heavy. Day 6 of printing every single Pokeball until I run out of Pokeballs to print. For today's Pokeball, we're going to be making the Heavy Ball. The Heavy Ball was introduced back in Generation 2, which was the Gold and Silver games. Man, we're doing a lot from Gold and Silver. It's kind of funny. The Heavy Ball actually has a very unique mechanic, being, obviously, what the name suggests, is that it actually has a better catch rate the heavier the Pokemon is. And very similar to a lot of other ones we've made so far, the gimmick is really only pertaining to a certain group of Pokemon, but I still think it's a very strong and good mechanic. And here's the collection that we have so far. Comment which one you want to see next. Day 7 of printing every single Pokeball until I run out of Pokeballs to print. For today's Pokeball, we have the amazing Dive Ball. Hope you really like that little sparkly purple I used. I try to use different colors on here to kind of make them stand out a little bit more, and I think it's working out. The Dive Ball was actually introduced instead of Generation 2. It was introduced in Generation 3. This Pokeball actually has a 3.5% amplifier when used underwater, because that was a new thing that was introduced in Gen 3, which I kind of forgot. Funny enough, even after Gen 3, the Dive Ball actually kept a lot of its original abilities, meaning that if you were surfing, fishing, anything to do with water-type Pokemon, it still has that 3.5% amplifier to use against it. And with that, that's another one added to the collection. Which Pokeball should we print next? Day 8 of printing every single Pokeball until I run out of Pokeballs to print. For today's Pokeball, we're going to be making the beautiful Cherish Ball. The Cherish Ball made its debut in Generation 4 in the Diamond and Pearl games. Something interesting about the Cherish Ball is that this is the only Pokeball to ever not be officially attainable in any of the games. This Pokeball is exclusively used for event Pokemon, and if your buddy has this, well, there's a good chance that he could be hacking the game. Funny enough, there is no record of the catch rate of this Pokeball. Again, because it's unattainable, you were never supposed to have these to begin with. But it's actually interesting to note that there are trainers in most games that actually have one of these for some reason. No one really knows why. There's a few ace trainers that actually have one of these Pokeballs when you actually fight them, and it's really confusing. It's really odd. And there we have it. Very beautiful Pokeball indeed. Comment which Pokeball you want to see next. Day 9 of printing every single Pokeball until I run out of Pokeballs to print. For today's Pokeball, we're going to be making the Quick Ball. A little side note, I absolutely loved the way this Pokeball was made. 3D printing this was actually really fun, the way the pieces all go together. I don't know why, I really enjoyed printing this one. The Quick Ball was actually introduced all the way back in Generation 4, which was the Diamond and Pearl era. I could have sworn these were in Generation 3, but maybe I'm wrong. I could have sworn. And as the name suggests, the Quick Ball allows you to catch Pokemon a lot quicker than a regular Pokeball. If you were to use this Pokeball as the first action in a battle, it actually has a much higher % chance to catch that Pokemon. And of course, the longer you wait to use it, the less chance you have there. That's why you have the Timer Ball, which is kind of funny to think that you have a polar opposite Pokeball for a completely different reason. I think that's actually kind of funny and cool. And there we have it. Here is the finished Quick Ball. Comment which Pokeball you want to see next. Day 10 of printing every single Pokeball until I run out of Pokeballs to print. For today's Pokeball, we're going to be making the awesome Net Ball. I've always loved these when I was a kid. These were introduced back in Generation 3 in the Hoenn region, which were the Ruby and Sapphire games. Not only did I really like the design of this print, I really love the overall design of the Net Ball. It almost looks kind of like a spider web, which actually kind of makes sense considering what it does. The Net Ball actually has an increased catch rate for Pokemon that are water types and bug types. There isn't really much to say about this Pokeball other than its really nice and simplistic design, but like I said before, the way this 3D print went all together like a, puzzle, which was actually really fun to me. I totally did not drop all these pieces on the floor multiple times. Totally not. And with it all together, here's the finished product. What Pokeball should we make next? Day 11 of printing every single Pokeball until I run out of Pokeballs to print. For today's Pokeball, we're going to be making the Hisuian version of the regular Pokeball. I figured it'd be a little bit more interesting to make this version instead of just the regular one because, I know, it's more visually appealing. The Hisuian Pokeball actually debuted in not a regular Pokemon game, but in the Pokemon Legends Arceus game. Arceus? However you say it. He debuted in that game. And here we have it, the Hisuian regular Pokeball. Not much to say, but still an amazing Pokeball nonetheless. Day 12 of printing every single Pokeball until I run out of Pokeballs to print. For today's Pokeball, we're going to be doing a very interesting one. We're going to be doing the Team Rocket Ball, which has actually never been in any of the official games. Even though it's an exclusive Pokeball to the anime, it's rarely often seen. The only time we really ever see it is from random grunts, and we never see it from any of the main antagonists, which is something I find kind of interesting. You would think we would see it more often, but we really don't. The entire building process of this print was actually really fun. I like how the R kind of went into its little shell with the outer white lining, which is really cool. It turned out really, really nice, as you could see here. It fit all nice together. Kind of reminds me a little bit of like a basic Pokeball, but yeah, just a little bit more stylized. And with that, which one should we do next? Day 13 of printing every single Pokeball until I run out of Pokeballs to print. For today's Pokeball, we're going to be making a very unique one that honestly I didn't even know existed. Today we're going to be making the Sport Pokeball. This Pokeball was introduced in the Heart Gold and Soul Silver games and was actually introduced in an event called the Bug Catching Contest, and afterwards was actually attainable in the Isle of Arbor and many of the other DLC areas as a usable Pokeball. It is actually very similar and comparable to the Safari Ball, which was at the time, and from my understanding still is, unattainable in a regular area. The only time you can use it is in a Safari Zone. And there we have it, yet another simplistic Pokeball, but it's still amazing nonetheless. Day 14 of printing every single Pokeball until I run out of Pokeballs to print. As we start this video with a little mishap, for today's Pokeball, we're going to be making the Timer Ball. This very interesting Pokeball was introduced all the way back in Generation 3, which is the Ruby and Sapphire games, which, come to my attention, I really don't remember seeing this in game, but apparently it was in there, so take my word for it, I guess. Like in the name, the Timer Ball actually has a lot to do with the amount of turns that have passed within a Pokemon battle. If you exceed over 10 turns or even longer, the percentage of this Pokeball catching a Pokemon increases substantially, making it easier the longer you wait to use a Pokeball. And its design is pretty cool too, if you ask me. And here's the final product. Turned out really, really nice. I've always really loved the Timer Ball's design. I just kind of wish it was a little bit more useful. I mean, I guess it's really good in some scenarios, but man, its design is so cool. And with that, which Pokeball would you like to see next? Day 15 of printing every single Pokeball until I run out of Pokeballs to print. For today's Pokeball, we're going to be making the Fastball, which was introduced all the way back in Generation 2, which was the Gold and Silver games. Something very interesting about the design of this Pokeball is it's actually a reference to the Pikachu Pokeball that we saw in the first episode of the anime, which honestly I never really thought about it till now. They still have that little lightning bolt effect on it. I know the original doesn't have the yellow spots on the sides, but it's really interesting to think that they had some sort of like reference to it. I think that's really cool. The Fastball actually helps you catch Pokemon that have a high flee rate, which, again, very situational, but that's still pretty cool. It's such a cool design, you know, might as well use it on anything you find, really. And there we have it. The completed Fastball. Comment which Pokeball that you would like to see next. Day 16 of printing every single Pokeball until I run out of Pokeballs to print. For today's Pokeball, we're going to be making the Lure Ball, which was introduced all the way back in Generation 2 in the Gold, Silver, and surprisingly, Crystal era. As the name suggests, the Lure Ball actually has an increased chance to catch Pokemon that were actually lured to your position, mostly by fishing rods, which is interesting. I thought there was more ways to lure Pokemon into battle, so I thought this Pokeball actually had more usage, but to this day, almost 10 years later, this Pokeball only has one major use, and it's for fishing. And there we have it, the very fancy Lure Ball. Comment which Pokeball you want to see next. Day 17 of printing every single Pokeball, until I run out of Pokeballs to print. For today's Pokeball, we're going to be making the Safari Ball. Very similar to the Sport Ball we made in the past, this Pokeball was introduced in Generation 3 and the Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald games. And very similar to the Sport Ball, this Pokeball was only allowed in certain events. This event was called the Safari Zone, in which you were not allowed to use your own Pokemon, rather than you would use rocks and these Pokeballs. Still to this day, I didn't think that was the most efficient way to catch Pokemon. Aside from the lore of this Pokeball in the mainline games, this print was really fun to make. This is probably one of the most fun Pokeballs that I've printed so far, considering that it was like a big puzzle. It was really cool, it turned out really nice, and like I mentioned, here we have it. This is the Safari Ball. Comment which Pokeball you would like to see next. Day 18 of printing every single Pokeball, until I run out of Pokeballs to print. For Day 18's Pokeball, we're going to be making the Premier Ball, which was introduced all the way back in Generation 3, which was the Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald games. And I'm not really going to lie to y'all, there's not really much to say about this Pokeball other than it's very slick and very clean design. It doesn't really do anything, to my surprise. I thought, back in the day, it had a better catch rate for Fire-type Pokemon, and I just found out that that is not true. So, yeah, it really doesn't do anything too special. It is just a regular Pokeball with a different color. And as you can see, this thing turned out beautifully. Very clean, very nice. There's a little smudge right here, but that never hurt anyone. Very amazing Pokeball. Which Pokeball do you want us to print next? Day 19 of printing every single Pokeball, until I run out of Pokeballs to print. For today's Pokeball, we're going to be making the Heal Ball, which was introduced all the way back in the Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum games, which was Generation 4. There's not really much to be said other than it's really adorable design, but the Heal Ball actually serves a very unique purpose. When you actually catch a Pokemon, it heals them and clears any status effects they may have. Again, very situational. I don't know why you would ever want to use this for the actual effect of the Pokeball, but still an amazing design nonetheless. And there we have it. The really adorable Heal Ball. Now, obviously, I did use the wrong colors for the little petal areas for the front and back, but I still think this turned out really, really nice. Comment which Pokeball that you want to see next. Day 20 of printing every single Pokeball, until I run out of Pokeballs to print. For today's Pokeball, we're going to be making the GS Ball. Very interesting Pokeball introduced all the way back in Generation 2, which was the Gold, Silver, and Crystal games. Something interesting about the GS Ball is that it's actually a one-of-a-kind. There's no other Pokeball like it, and there's only one GS Ball ever created, because this was actually an event Pokeball with Celebi inside. And even though it can only be acquired in one game and only have one Pokemon inside, this Pokeball is still beautiful nonetheless. What Pokeball do you want to see next? Day 21 of printing every single Pokeball until I run out of Pokeballs to print. For today's Pokeball, we have a very interesting one that is another anime exclusive similar to the Team Rocket Pokeball. This one is the Clone Pokeball. The Clone Pokeball has no known game debuts and is not in any of the games, and actually is only in the first Pokemon movie as used as a clone, well, even in the name, as a clone Pokeball. When a Pokemon gets captured into it, it actually sends them and gets cloned into a different version. Very creepy, reflecting the design. Here it is. Man, this thing is weird. Really freaky up close. I love that color of the eye. And if you like what you see, comment what Pokeball you want to see next. Day 22 of printing every single Pokeball until I run out of Pokeballs to print. For today's Pokeball, we're going to be making the repeat ball, which originated all the way back in Gen 3, which was the Ruby, Sapphire, and even Emerald games. We've done a lot of these. It's kind of crazy to think how far we've gone with all these Pokeballs. I'm kind of surprised we're almost done with this. It's kind of scary. The repeat ball is a very simple Pokeball. In its name, you actually get a better and higher catch rate for catching Pokemon that you've already caught before. Very good for shiny catching indeed. And there we have it, the repeat Pokeball. Which one should we do next? Day 23 of printing every single Pokeball until I run out of Pokeballs to print. I have been using these Tupperwares for these Pokeballs mainly because I have been making way too many of these. So, yeah, I have like 5 more of these, but you're not going to see those because those are for the upcoming weeks. So, yeah, don't expect to see those just yet. And of course, I hope y'all are excited for the upcoming days with the next Pokeballs, but for today, we are making the Level Ball. The Level Ball was first introduced in Generation 2, but more specifically in the Crystal games, and somehow carried over to the original 2, which I don't know how that worked. The Level Ball actually allows you to catch Pokemon easier if their level is lower than your current Pokemon. I thought it was the other way around. Woo! Wait a minute. Wait, that kind of goes crazy. Wait a minute. Wait, that's actually really cool looking. Hold on. Man, that thing turned out good. Ooh. Which one should we print next? Comment down below. Day 24, printing every single Pokeball until I run out of Pokeballs to print. It's funny, I recently started finding a bunch of the cubes that go in the middle of these. I think for the first like 10 days I never used them, so I just have a bunch of these cubes just lying around. For today's Pokeball, we're going to be making the Love Ball. This Pokeball was introduced all the way back in Generation 2, which was the Gold, Silver, and Crystal games. We've been doing a lot of Pokeballs from this game. It's very funny, I didn't know that many Pokeballs came from that. And interestingly enough, this Pokeball actually has a higher catch rate for Pokemon that are the opposite gender of your current Pokemon. Very situational. It's actually really cute. I like that. It's really good. I think these are different colors, but on the STL file, it did show that they were the same. Still very cool. Comment which Pokeball we should do next. Day 25 of printing every single Pokeball until I run out of Pokeballs to print. Really hate to be the bearer of bad news. We're down to the last 4 Pokeballs. I don't know how this happened. I hope y'all are really enjoying the series, but we're somehow on the final stretch, so let's get to it. Let's make it good. For today's Pokeball, we're going to be making the most notorious Pokeball in all the games, being the Master Ball. The Master Ball was introduced in Generation 1 and has a guaranteed catch rate for any Pokemon you throw it at. And to this day, that has not changed, which is kind of bizarre. Oh man. I thought I was overusing the metallic colors on here, but this looks really nice. Ooh. Very cool. Stay tuned for the next Pokeball. Day 26 of printing every single Pokeball until I run out of Pokeballs to print. Down to the final stretch, y'all. Down to the last 3, if I can even open this one up. Let's get to it. For today's Pokeball, we're going to be making the Ultra Ball. The Ultra Ball was one of the first 3 original Pokeballs and actually had the highest catch rate amongst the 3, being the Pokeball, Great Ball, and of course, the Ultra Ball. Oh man, it's really nice. I've been abusing this Silk Gold. It's not even funny. Also, I don't know why it's like cloudy in here, or like on the camera, but very cool. Day 27. Printing every single Pokeball until I run out of Pokeballs to print. Also, I printed these little polygon Charizards. I didn't really think these harbored a full video, but they're pretty cool. I especially like this one. He's like sitting down and his dogs are out. Anyway, let's make a Pokeball. But we're not focusing on his dogs. We're focusing on the Great Ball, which was introduced all the way back in the first generation alongside the Pokeball, Ultra Ball, and the notorious Master Ball. Very nice. I'm not a huge fan of these weird little circles the print did, but I like that. Very simple. I like it a lot. Day 28 of printing every single Pokeball until I run out of Pokeballs to print. Sadly, today is the last Pokeball that we're going to print, but I hope y'all stay tuned to the end of the video because I do have a little special announcement. So, let's print it and then let's talk. And like I mentioned, I do have a little special announcement at the end of the video, so stay tuned for that. But for today's Pokeball, we're going to be making the original Pokeball, the OG. There we have it, the final Pokeball, the regular original one. Very nice. And as I did say, I do have a little announcement to make, just real quick. Good and bad news, kind of both. The bad news is I will not be able to be selling these, right? I'm going to respect the privacy of the creator of these models, and I will not be selling these. He doesn't want you to sell these, so I'm going to respect that. But good news is that I was planning on ending this series once I finished and once I completed all of them, but I figured I'm going to keep doing it. I'm going to make a season 2. Now, I will be posting other content other than the Pokeballs because I do want to kind of branch out just a little bit. But I'm really glad of how well this turned out. This whole series was really amazing for my channel. So I hope that y'all are here for the long run because I definitely am. So not only am I going to continue the series, I am also planning on making other videos on top of that. So hope y'all are staying tuned for that. With that, which Pokeball should we print next?